Courage, Confidence in Crisis. A survivor's story of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. Edgar Harrell, United States Marine Corps, USS Indianapolis survivor, World War II. Jackson Center, Huntsville, Alabama, September 19, 2019. United States Marine Ed Harrell, survivor, tells the tragic story of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis on July 30, 1945. The sinking of the heavy cruiser Indianapolis was the largest casualty at sea in the history of the United States Navy. Of the crew of 1,197 aboard, it is estimated that 900 made it into the water, but many of these were injured from the explosion and fire and therefore did not last long in the water. The ship sank in about 12 minutes. 880 of the 1,197 aboard did not survive the sinking. Only 317 survived the 4.5 days in the shark-infested waters. The Indianapolis had just made a record speed run from San Francisco to our B-29 base on the island of Tinian in the Marianas. The cargo aboard was the components of the atomic bomb, which was to be dropped on Nagasaki in Japan. 26 days from the time that the cargo was loaded aboard the Indianapolis, the war was over. The Japanese were aboard the Missouri. Harrell's story has to do with his experience those 4.5 days. Harrell abandoned the ship with only a K-Pock life jacket and thus required swimming nearly constantly for the next 4.5 days.
Please rise and remain standing for the posting of color, the singing of the national anthem, and the invocation.
Ready, set.
Posting the colors today,
Arch.
the Hazel Green High School Naval ROTC Color Guard under direction of Commander Lucas.
Oh. Permission to post the colors. Post the colors. Aye, aye, sir. Order. Colors. Ready, good. Right. Face. Forward. Arms. Two step. March. Order. Arms. Ready. Good. Left. Face. Ready, done. Downwards. March. Go. Order. Close. Ready, done. Close. Present arms. Order. Arms. Ready. Good. Right. Face. Forward. Arms. Two steps. March.
I want to thank Liberty Song for singing the national anthem. I also want to thank the Hazel Green High School and Naval JROTC Color Guard and our Marine Escorts for helping with today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, given the invocation today is Chaplain and Colonel James Henderson, U.S. Army retired and Vietnam veteran. Colonel Henderson.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Father, thank you for this special day as we remember and honor the heroes of the USS Indianapolis. Lord, thank you for our great nation and all who made it great, for all who served in our armed forces then and now, many who are here today, and the many who gave their lives so that we can be free. Lord, thank you for all of your blessings. God bless the United States of America. God bless all of our armed forces, past, present, and future. And Lord, bless the families, and we pray special blessings upon all of our service members deployed on this day, and we pray blessings for their families. Lord, bless this special event and all who are here today and all who made it possible. Most of all, help each one of us live our lives in ways that please you. Help us to achieve the purposes for which you created us all. In Christ's holy name I pray. Amen. Amen. Please be seated.
Thank you, Chaplain Henderson. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Perry, and I'm honored to be here with you today. I want to welcome you to today's luncheon featuring Sergeant Edgar Harrell and his incredible story of survival after the sinking of his ship in World War II. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge our World War II veterans and their spouses who are here with us today. Gentlemen, will you and your spouses please stand or give us a wave? Gentlemen are to my right. World War II veterans. I want to thank Ms. Chris Chetty and Ms. Ellen Oates for the great work that they are doing with World War II veterans. Chris and Ellen are the organizers of Forever Young Senior Veterans, an organization that takes World War II vets to Europe. They recently returned from Europe this last Saturday. I'd like to also recognize our veterans from Tuck Fan Veterans Home who are here with us today. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to recognize all of our veterans who are here today. Well, our Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans, Afghan veterans, Iraqi War veterans, and their spouses, please stand and be recognized. Thank you. I'd like to recognize our sponsors for today's luncheon. Please see the screen behind me. We thank you for your generosity and thank you for supporting our event. I want to thank the Redstone Huntsville chapter of AUSA and REA Wealth Management for for co-hosting today's luncheon. We are fortunate to have these two great organizations join forces to present this great opportunity to the community. Would Ms. Rhonda Sutton, Vice President of the Center-Huntsville chapter of AUSA, please join me at the podium to welcome our veterans. Ms. Rhonda.
Thank you, John. Thank you to all of those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to put this event together today. It's wonderful to be here. It's more wonderful to see a room full of our American heroes. Another round of applause. On behalf of the Center-Huntsville chapter of AUSA, who is actually celebrating this year our 60th year as a chapter in this community, I would like to thank you for supporting this event and coming out today. And if you need additional information about our chapter, it's out on the registration table. Our upcoming calendar of events is located there, as well as some other exciting information about the annual meeting that will be in October up in Washington. There's also some very valuable information for you on the table about ESGR, the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. That's another important mission that our chapter supports here. If you are a representative of a company today and are not sure if your company has ever signed a statement of support, we encourage you to pick one up on the way out, and we can answer any questions that you have about that as well. So without further ado, I do have a small presentation that I'm going to make to Sergeant Harrell. I want to present him with one of our chapter coins. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Rhonda. Thank you, Ms. Rhonda. Ladies and gentlemen, with Mr. Joe Lawrence, President of REA Wealth Management, please come to the podium and welcome our veterans, and please do the honors of introducing our guest speaker. Joe?
Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming out. It's been a wonderful opportunity just to sponsor an event like this and to see all our veterans. It's amazing to me. I would like to introduce my friend Greg Poplawski. He called me on the phone one day and said, "You've got to hear Sergeant Edgar Harrell. He's amazing," and he's going to introduce us to him, and I can't wait to hear him speak today. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone. So my name is Greg Poplawski. I'm a retirement specialist with One America based in Indianapolis, so there's the connection. I was fortunate enough to meet Sergeant Harrell over a year ago through my cousin, who was with 6 years with the Marines and 22 years with the FBI, and actually worked to help Edgar get his promotion to sergeant 74 years later after he was given the promotion on the ship. But the next day the ship was sunk and the paperwork went down with the ship. So my cousin went to work, and after about 6 months he was able to get the promotion 74 years later. As a follow-up to this meeting, if you want to see something really neat, just Google Sergeant Edgar Harrell promotion, because it was covered by Fox News. It's just absolutely an amazing story. So, on behalf of all our sponsors, and you saw them up on the slides, I want to thank you all for joining us today. Obviously, a very special day, because it represents a celebration of something that's so near and dear to us, and that's our freedoms. So we all know how fortunate we are to live in the greatest country in the world, with the greatest economy, even financial services, the greatest economy in the history of the world. But we must never forget that these incredible freedoms come at a price. And so many of you around the room, we can't thank you enough, have stepped up to answer that call to service and duty to our country, to keep our country free. And today, we have someone, a proud American, who answered that call to service. Think about this. In 1941, Sergeant Edgar Harrell will be sharing his amazing and personal story of 5 things that really matter most in life, I believe. 1, patriotism. I'm sure you all agree. 2, survival. 3 is faith, courage, And then probably the most important things as the years go on, we realize love, the love of one another and how important that is. So he's the last surviving Marine, as you now know, from the Indianapolis, which was sunk after delivering the atomic bomb in 1945. We've done this presentation 6 times, and one of the things I like to say to the audience is, what if Edgar and his shipmates do not make that journey from San Francisco to the Tiananmen Islands, and that atomic bomb does not get there? The war rages on. The Japanese were not going to surrender. It was the only way, the only solution, and they got the job done. So before we bring them up, we want to show you a very quick video. Caleb?
I said to the Lord, Thou art my God. Give ear, O Lord, to the voice of my supplications. O God, the Lord, the strength of my salvation, Thou hast covered my head in the day of battle. Psalm 140, verses 6 through 7. Every survivor of war has a story to tell. Stories of triumph and tragedy, faith and fear. Stories like mine, where fact is often stranger than fiction. Since that fateful night of July 30th, 1945, when I stepped off a sinking ship into the unknown depths of the Pacific Ocean, there has never been a day when I have not reflected upon the horrors I experienced in those 4.5 days, swimming in shark-infested waters. However, while those frightening memories remain vivid in my mind's eye, one memory eclipses them all, namely the unfailing presence of God that sustained me. Luck had absolutely nothing to do with my survival. I believe with all my heart that it was solely by the providence of God that I lived through those dreadful days and nights. It is therefore to His glory that I recount my story. A story that exalts the one who ultimately authored it. I'm sure that in many ways, my background is no different than hundreds of thousands of other folks who grew up in our great country during the years of the Depression and survived the horrors of World War II. I suppose we all developed a survivor mindset in those days of adversity. As I reflect upon those bittersweet years of blood, sweat, and tears, mingled with the joys of family, friends, and faith, I must confess that I wish our country could go back to those times and recapture the core values upon which our nation was founded. Values originally shaped by our founding fathers, who had an unshakable faith in the God of the Bible. Although the current moral freefall of America makes such a desire highly unlikely, perhaps my humble story will remind readers of the strength of character that was born out of that era and manifested in the millions of Americans who fought and died for our freedom.
Please give a warm welcome to Purple Heart and Congressional Gold Medal recipient from the United States Marine Corps, Sergeant Edgar Harrell.
Thank you so much. It's indeed a double honor to be with this fine group today. I could just ask the first question. How many of you have heard USS Indianapolis survivor? Yes, a few of you. Well, then the rest of you just take note. I'll try to tell you something of my experience aboard the USS Indianapolis. But in doing so, I'd like to back up a little bit and say that I came from over in western Kentucky, And some of you older ones, maybe you remember a certain radio announcer by the name of Walter Winchell. Any of you know? He was telling that the Japs were at Midway, and Midway to this high school youngster meant as halfway between Hawaii and America. No. But that was my knowledge, and I had already registered for the draft, and I go to my dad, and I tell my dad, Dad, I want to volunteer for the Marine Corps. And I go to the little office there in Murray, Kentucky, and tell them I want to get in the Marines, and they obliged, and they called me up, and I went to Evansville, Indiana, and passed the physical, and they said if you want the Marines, you have to go to Indianapolis, Indiana. So I go to Indianapolis, I became a Marine, and then ended up then in San Diego boot camp. And after boot camp, they said, Private Harrell, you're selected to go to sea school, which meant that I would be seagoing. And so I go up to San Francisco, and there was my first sight of the USS Indianapolis. And you can imagine, no you can't, what I'm thinking, that's to be my home for the duration of the war. And soon after going aboard, we were at Kwajalein, Inuitok, Saipan, Tinian, Guam, Sea Battle of the Philippine Seas, where our Task Force 58 shot down 403 Japanese aircraft that day. I was down at Palau, I was at Iwo Jima, Okinawa. We were there before the 27th Army, of which my brother next to me would be there, and the 6th Marines would be there. We were preparing the beachheads for them to land, but a Jap suicide plane got through somehow, and I can hear that boatswain blowing the whistle today. Yes, I can. And he said, send emergency condition in the anti-aircraft battery. I jumped on a 40 millimeter and got shells, put it in to cock it to get ready, but we never even got it raised. They said 11 seconds later, that plane hit us. And one bomb went in the water, one went all the way through the ship. It went through the mess hall, it went through the sleeping quarters, it went through the water distilling plant, went through the bottom of the ship, and hit one of those big shafts that turns the screws, exploded, and now there's a big hole in the ship, and we have to make our way back to the States for repair. And I recall on July the 16th, 1945, we look out on the dock and we saw all kinds of Navy and Marine brass out there, and we thought, what's happening? And then our crane reached over and got a large crate and set it on the quarterdeck, and my Marine captain said, then Private Harrell, no, I was a corporal then. Corporal Harrell, followed him into the port hangar deck there and set a watch. Well, what are we guarding? Well, we didn't know. I'll get back to that in a little bit. And then there were a couple of Air Force officers that came aboard, they said, and we saw that they had a little canister in a metal cage with a padlock on it. And again, my Marine Captain Parks says, followed him up to a certain stateroom that's vacant because our ship was the flagship of Admiral Spruance, but the flag was not aboard, so I take them up wondering what do they have in that little crate, and who are they? Okay, they go into a certain little stateroom, and a couple of sailors followed them. one had a blowtorch and another one had a long strap of metal. And so they spark welded that over that little crate, spark welded. That was not going to get away. Now, who were those Air Force officers? They weren't Air Force officers. They were scientists from Los Alamos, New Mexico. Now, you know part of the story. Okay, but back it up to when I first saw that ship on July the 16th, going under the Golden Gate Bridge, they said something is happening in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and that was the first successful explosion of our first atomic bomb. Now then, here we are. We make our trip now to Tinian Island. We've unloaded our cargo, not knowing what we maybe had, and it's possible that no one aboard ship knew it except our Captain McVeigh, and someone else knew. That was President Truman at the time, and others maybe in his ranks knew what we had. Because on July the 16th, 1945, in Los Alamos was the first successful explosion of the atomic bomb. So now then, we've unloaded. Now Captain McVeigh backed up from Tinian to Guam, and he asked our sailing orders. Well, we knew the scuttlebutt since the flag was aboard. That was that America would land 2 million troops on Japan. Britain maybe would join us with another million, but President Truman had some decisions to make because he knew what we had just transported. He could continue to firebombing Japan with our B-29s, or he could try to make some kind of an embarrassing settlement with them and pull out, or he could land 2 million troops, or he had the right decision to make, and he made it. He dropped the atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Dropped it on July the 6th and July the 9th. And then July the 12th, the Japs were aboard the Missouri. The war was over. Now let me take you back a bit in that we leave Guam July the 29th. We're going to the Philippines now. Our flag is not aboard, but we knew all the scuttlebutt of what was going to take place. Now the bomb had not been dropped, but we at least at the time knew that we were to be in the Philippines. But 2 days out of Guam, on the night of July the 29th, about 12 minutes past midnight, Commander Hoshimoto on a Japanese submarine had his little periscope sticking up, and we could not detect him because Captain McVeigh had asked for an escort, and they tell him you don't need an escort. They were not telling us the truth. They could have said you need an escort because we lost 4 days ago. We lost the USS Underhill. We lost 129 boys. They don't tell him that. They tell him you don't need an escort. They too knew that we had no underwater sound gear. And they knew too that the Taman group of submarines were working in those waters, but they tell him we don't need an escort, and so we set sail. We had been traveling some 28, 30, 32 knots. I recall as we were going from San Francisco to Pearl and then on to Tinian, that the officer of the deck came and he said, I need to talk to the captain.
I happened to be the corporal, McVeigh's orderly, and so McVeigh came out, and the officer said, Skip, we've got to slow this thing down, or we're gonna burn up the motors. And McVeigh looked at him rather sternly for just a bit, and he said, keep the same speed. Now, we kept the same speed. Now then, we are going then, and we encountered Commander Hoshimoto. He had his little periscope sticking up, and he had a good target. We had no water sound gear, and we knew a certain route that we were going to travel. He had not been successful in getting one the whole war, but all he had to do was wait. And he waited patiently, and he picked us up. And he tells the crew to load 6 torpedoes and stand by. They loaded. They also loaded what they call a Cayetan, which was a motorized a torpedo that 2 boys would be, and 2 boys were in one, and 2 wanted to get in another, and it would be a suicide mission. And Commander Hoshimoto tells them, we've got too good a target, and we can't bring you back once we fire you. So he tells them to stand by, fire. Every 2 seconds he fired a torpedo. Now then, I had gotten off a watch that night at 12 o'clock. And I had gone below deck to the Marine compartment, and I get my blanket. Now, we'd been traveling, 32 knots, but now we've slowed down to maybe some 15, 17 mile an hour, and a good captain, knowing that it's 110 degrees out, and we have no air conditioning aboard the Indianapolis back then. No. And the good captain announced, you're welcome to come topside and make your pilot right out on the open deck. And so I went below deck, the Marine compartment, and I get my blanket. I have on my dungarees, and I went forward. We don't have a picture of the ship, but if you see a picture of the ship, you can see there's a big 8-inch guns up fairly close forward, and that's number 1 turret, number 2 turret, and then that's the 3rd one aft, and we had 40 millimeters and 5-inch gun. But I made my pilot right down on the deck under the barrels of number 1 turret, and about 14 minutes past midnight, Commander Hoshimoto fire with 2 of those 6 hit us. The first one cut the bow of the ship off. Now, when I say it cut it off, let me explain. I'm sleeping under the barrels of number 1 turret, and there's some 20 millimeters up there, and there's maybe another 30 feet, and I've written 2 books, now I've traveled in 43 states, and I've told the story, I'll say hundreds of times, and yes, possibly so. I said, National Geographic came and interviewed me. They thought that someone was going to find it, and I said, when you find it, you're going to find that the bow of the ship was cut off. How do you know? I was sleeping under the barrels of number 1 turret, and about 30 feet in front of me, forward of me, that bow was cut off, and how could have I survived that? Well, I tell them I saw that, and I tell them if you ever find that ship, you're going to find the bow of the ship is off. Now, if you've watched any news, PBS, since last year sometime, they called me and they said, Harrell, we just called to tell you we found the Indianapolis there in the Philippine seas. 3.5 miles down. And I said, and where was the bow of the ship? They said, it's a mile from the ship. I said, I told you that, and no one could believe me. Now then, let me take you back to the story itself. Okay, here we are, and Commander Hoshimoto has fired all of those torpedoes at us now, and the ship is sinking, and I thought that I could feel those bulkheads breaking down below. There was something that was different, and I knew that water was coming in, and nearly automatically all the hatches are sealed on the top, and you could, maybe I could hear it, maybe I could feel it, but something is happening. Those 4 big screws are still pushing. All of that water is coming in, and it flooded everything below deck. Okay, I have an emergency station back midship, and I don't know, I had to make me a pallet there with my blanket. I put my blanket over my shoe, put my head in that arch, and now that blanket is wet, and it protected me from all of that flash of fumes burning. And okay, I know I'll get back to midship, but on the way back there were officers who were coming out of the forward area, and you could see they were in their night skivvies, and they were flash burned. And maybe they put their hand on a hot bulkhead and left the skin of the hand on the bulkhead. And they're pleading for someone to give them some help, but there's nothing that this Marine could do. I have an emergency station to get to, and I'm making my way back to my emergency station on the quarterdeck. And I get back there, I realize I don't have my cable jacket. It's locked up down in my locker. And my Marine lieutenant was there, and I see him. I said, Lieutenant Stauffer, permission to cut down a new supply of cable life jackets. His response was, not until we get word to abandon ship. The ship is sinking. I had come from the forward area, and the first 100 yards, so to speak, on the starboard side, it's full of water, and all of that water is coming back. And so when I get to the quarterdeck normally would be 8 feet above water line. There's water on the quarterdeck, so the ship is sinking. We're waiting for word to come down from Sky Forward, or the good captain up there, to tell us to abandon ship, but he had sent someone below deck, and he's waiting maybe for a report. But whomever went down, they never made it back out. And so I asked my Marine Lieutenant Stauffer permission to cut down some life jackets. He said, not until we get word to abandon ship. And we're waiting impatiently, but we could see waters on the quarterdeck, and we're listening to where it's difficult to even stand on the deck. And then finally word begins to come down, and it would be like someone over here giving word to abandon ship, and someone here hears him. It's like an echo, but that reached us. And I'm on the quarterdeck, I don't know, with 80 to 100 people. And then to go over to the port side and look out into eternity. You wonder if life is over, really. And so what do? I'm looking out at the blackness of the night. I'm looking out at all of that oil on the water, and I'm going to go into that, yes. And as I hung on to that rail, thinking, life is over. This is the end of life. And may I say, there's times when you pray, and there's times when you pray, and there is a difference. And as I held on to that rail, I tell the Lord, whom I knew, I said, I don't want to die. I made him promises that I'm sure I've never been able to keep. But I could hear him say it to me, maybe just as a Sunday school boy. I could hear the scripture. He did not talk to me audibly, but he said to me, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. Peace I give unto you, not as the world give unto you. Let not your heart be troubled. Don't be afraid. I'm scared to death. Life is over, but I'm holding on to that rail and I'm praying. And I'm telling the Lord, I don't want to die. I've made him more promises than I can keep, but I have tried through the years, but I tell him then, I don't want to die. Mom and Dad back home, older sister and a younger sister, and a brother that would be in Okinawa, and I tell him likewise, there is a certain brunette that said that she would wait for me, and let me say, and she waited. After all of this, yes, she waited, and we were married in 47, and after 71 years, just this past March, she went to be with the Lord, and one day, she's still waiting for me, and I'll follow. Now, from there I travel the country now, I tell him the story, but let me take you back. Here in the water, I'm with 80 or so boys when I left the ship, and I wanted to know if there's any Marines. There were 2 Marines. One was a new boy that had come aboard, and I don't know whether he was assigned to my squad or not, but I checked him and I found out that he had multiple breaks in his body, and he basically died in my arms within the next hour or so. Another Marine had gone in the water head first, and can you imagine? If you dove into a half inch of oil, you're going to wear that, yes. The more you rub it, the more you irritate that eye. You look up at that 110 degree weather, sun, and that sun, drying that salt, and you rub your eyes, and that's my buddy Spooner. Well, I'll get back maybe to him later, but on the 2 Marines, but many boys didn't have kapok jackets. They were maybe hanging on to others. And then we struggled through the night, doing the best that we could to help many of those who were injured. But daylight came early in the morning. But anytime after daylight, you could look out and you could see a big black fin swimming around. Now, in fairness to the sharks, so they were not attacking our groups, but they didn't have to attack us to affect us, because you know that sooner or later something's going to happen. Maybe someone that is hallucinating, he is injured and he has a high temperature, and he sees something like that, and to him, he's going out. And so he goes out, and you hear a blood-curdling scream, and you look, and that kapok goes under, and then it comes back to the surface, and sharks, and you dare not to go and check your buddy, but sometime later maybe you check to see who your buddy might have been, and you may find that the bottom torso is gone, or he's disemboweled. Now that is happening many times. Okay, the first day comes sharks, many injured, and you're doing your best with what you've got. Two boys maybe would be sharing a K-Buck life jacket, and if you know what an old K-Buck life jacket is, it won't last very long. It's going to get waterlogged, and it's not going to do you much good, but you do the best you can. Now, let's go through that first day. We're losing boys just every little bit. And then nighttime comes. Well, you're glad that the sun is not shining, but at night that water is about 85 degrees. And I have on my dungarees, so I'm controlling some of my body temperature. But boys just in their skivvies, 85 degrees and a little wind, it isn't long, the hypothermia sets in, and they aren't going to make it, maybe not even through the night. And then the second day, or the first day after the night, and then the second night, we're losing boys. Now the second day, have you ever really been thirsty? Really thirsty? Have you been so thirsty that your tongue is swollen in your mouth and you're having trouble even breathing through your mouth, and you're desperate for water? Okay. What if all of a sudden you could see, look, it's raining like it does here. We're in Alabama, yeah, look at that little rain cloud. Okay, it finally comes over, and what do? You take those greasy hands and you catch a little bit of water, a few tablespoons maybe, and you're so thankful for that water. And it goes down, and you're thankful, but it isn't, just a little bit, and it says, we've got to come back out, and it does. Now, may I just get ahead and say, that's all the water that I had for 4.5 days. Okay, now let's take you to the third day. Now, we've been losing boys from the sharks. We've been losing boys, hypothermia. We're losing boys that just, I've seen boys, I saw boys that maybe just didn't have any more energy, and I've heard many of my boys that survived said, all you had to do is just give up and you're gone. And that was the case. But now we come to sometime the third afternoon when we are so desperate. And what do you do when you know K-Buck jacket is not sufficient and you don't have the energy just to continue? Okay, I recall there was only 17 of us now the third day at noon. You can just imagine what all has happened. Only 17. And I can hear this big old Texan say, boys, we've got to pray because we see our B-29, 30,000 feet up there bombing Tokyo. No one's looking for us. He said, we've got to pray. He said, I've got a son back home I've never seen. Well, may I say, he never ever got to see his son. But there's 17 of us. And what can we do? We take our K-Buck jackets off, and they're water soaked, but we pull them down under us and kind of pull them under our buttocks, and they have the same buoyancy. The only thing they're a little lower on the body. Now then, you've got to, can you continue? Or if you quit, then you fall in the water. You don't have the strength to get that spare tire, so to speak, back under you. So you are depending on that old water-soaked K-Buck jacket, and you're having to swim. And then we hear voices. Now, may I say, as I said earlier, you can see things that isn't out there. You can hear things, believe me, that doesn't exist. But we heard something. we heard something and then we saw something, and it isn't long until we could see that it's a little makeshift of a raft. Yes, a little makeshift of a raft. And we could holler at it, at them. They responded to us. And after a period of time, they came into our group. And now, when we saw that raft a little closer, we could see no one was on the raft, no. But there were 5 sailors around the little makeshift of a raft. That raft consisted of 4 40-millimeter ammunition cans, which are a good flotation device, 3 or 4 or so old slatted potato crates or orange crates, and they were lashed together. And what was on the raft? What was on the raft was this. You ladies, you know, you have an old sponge that won't hold any more water. If you squeeze it out, it'll hold more water. And what they have done was taken K-pop jackets off the boys that already expired and squeezed them out, put them up on that little raft. And here they came in to us, and they say, we've got to get closer to the Philippines, or unless someone sees us, we can't make it. They wanted to know if anyone wanted to join them. And I say to my Marine buddy, Spooner, I'm going to go with them. He said, Harrell, if you go, I'm going with you. 2 Marines joined those 5 sailors, and we think they were going to the Philippines. We didn't know it was another 500 miles. But when you see a group of some 80 now, there's 17, it's time to do something. May I say this now? Those 15 boys that did not dare to make that voyage with us, none of them survived. But 2 Marines and those 5, we continued. We didn't know, as I said, 500 miles to the Philippines, but here we're going that direction. And sometime then, later that afternoon, they had put me up at the front corner and said, look, it's kind of clouding up. We can't see the Southern Cross. The sun is going down. It's out there someplace in the west. You keep us going toward the west. And okay, I came up on the swell. I could look off at a distance, and I saw some debris out there. I said, look, there's something out there. Now we are in 6+ foot swells. And finally it's up, and something says, go and see what that might be. And now I put my K-Pock on me, and I do not too fast. I didn't have the energy hardly to do what I was even trying to do, to swim out and see what that old crate out there might consist of. And as I got within, say, 6 feet of that old potato crate, I saw those potatoes in there, and in desperation to reach in and get that first potato, yes, I got it, but as I squeezed it, that rock squeezed between my fingers, and rotten potatoes, but it was solid on the inside. And then to take that potato and peel it with your teeth and spit out the rock and a little bit of solid potato. That's all the water or food that I had for 4.5 days. My buddies see me eating something, what is it? Rotten potatoes. They leave the raft. They came out and joined me. We had a little picnic, and all we had to eat was half-rotten potatoes. Okay, from there now we're struggling. We're struggling, and sometime then later that night, 1 o'clock-ish or so, we heard voices again, real voices we knew, and it isn't long until they got closer and we're going towards them, but it's dark. It's dark. We're going just by sound. And Lieutenant McKissick that I knew aboard ship, he was a real gentleman to me. Here I am, a corporal, the captain's orderly, and he'd give me a message. I didn't know the nomenclature of all that he was talking about, and I'm to take that message, and the good Joe that he was, he'd say, "Corporal, repeat that to me." And I'd try to repeat it, maybe the second or third time or so. He said, "Okay, go, go," and I'd go. Now that was McKissick, and so here, my first encounter there in the water with him, and there was another sailor with him, and before I had left that raft, go back up just a bit, before I had left that raft that first morning, which would be the next morning now ahead of what I'm telling you, but anyway, we're desperate there before that night came, and we joined the others, and now the next morning now, I had tied my buddy Spooner onto that raft the day before, and so now we've gone through that night, and all I'm with is McKissick and the one sailor. I looked over at that one sailor and I saw what I'd seen so many times, and to say this, it's much, much easier to die than it is to live. And I checked my buddy, and his head had dropped in the water. The second time I checked him, the same thing. The third time I checked him, he's gone. So it's just McKissick and myself. Now we see planes flying over 30,000 feet. No one's looking for us. We're desperate. We know that unless a miracle happens, there's no way that we can go through another night. And then we see our B-29s up yonder someplace, many of them. But all of a sudden, I hear a plane. Look, 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 look! I see a plane. Yes, I saw a plane. And I'm waving, waving, waving. And, you know, could he see me down there? Did he see us down there? No, no, no. Impossible. Why? He's flying, let's say, several hundred feet, a few thousand feet maybe. He's looking out forward of him, let's say, 4 miles, 2.5 miles each side, 20 square miles, and to see a man's head down there. Impossible. But let me tell you, and this is factual, this is providential to me. Yes, Lieutenant Gwynn flying that Ventura, that twin-engine plane with wheels, he's having trouble up there with his radio antenna, and he can't reach back Palouse, and he's having so much trouble that he has to stay up 5,000 to 7,000 feet to reach base, but he can't see his enemy down there when he's much lower. And at a given time, Lieutenant Gwynn says to the co-pilot, "Take over this plane. I'm going to go aft. I'm going to pull in that radio antenna." The stabilizer on that had come off, and that antenna was just flipping. And so as he goes aft, he opens the bomb bay door, and he looks down at a split second. What did he see? I spoke to the 100th anniversary of the Boy Scouts out in Spokane, some 5,400 scouts. I said, he saw your little mirror. He saw your little mirror. Always take that little mirror with you. And when Gwynn saw that down there, he saw that sun hit the oil down there on something, and he rushes back to take over control. And now he's coming down to see, but he tells the crew, load the bombs, load the bombs. The bombs are loaded. He's coming in for a kill. But when he gets down much lower, he sees boys scattered, he said, for 20 miles. And as he checks, he found that most were stragglers. A few were still on floater nets. Only 2 or 3 life rafts were out there. And so what can he do? Now he has to go up, up, up. Now, I see him before he goes back up, just McKissick and myself. And I can see him, yes, today. I can see him I can see his visage in that aircraft. And he said, I see you down there. Don't know who you are. And then he leaves and he goes up. He has to go up much higher to reach base and tell them that there's boys scattered everywhere. Don't know who they are. He gets a hold of a PBY pilot, Adrian Marks in Guam, and he tells him what he's located out there. And Marks tells him then that he's already gassed up on a go out on a search and destroy, but it'll be a couple of hours before he can even make that voyage. And so Glenn tells him that he will stay there as long as he can, but he says, I'll be running out of fuel before a couple of hours. I'll have to leave. And he did have to leave, and so here Mark's in that PBY, he's making his way. He flies over a destroyer, the USS Doyle, and he tells them what is ahead. Who are they? No one knows. And Doyle said, well, it would take him some time to get there in a destroyer. But Mark said, I'm going. And he gets there and he sees boys scattered everywhere. A few on floater nets, yes, but stragglers. And who are they? No one knows. And he asked permission to do a no-no. And command told him, no way do you set that aircraft down in 6+ foot swells. But the crew said they saw more sharks than they saw boys, just sharks everywhere. And they tell Marks, the captain of that aircraft, we're behind you. We have to set this plane down. Look what we see down there. And so, may I say, and thank goodness he disobeyed orders. And I can see that PBY coming down, and that tail of that aircraft is down. And it caught before anything, and when it did, it pitched him. That right prop would never run again. Now, what can he do? He could just run the troughs out there. And he picked up the first boy, USS Indianapolis. No one knew until then that the Indianapolis had been sunk. And so now all he can do with that one prop is to run the swells. I knew that he picked up McKissick, and I knew that McKissick could tell him that there's a Marine out there someplace. And now I can see them as he's coming down in between these swells and they pitched out a little rein for me to grab a hold of and pulled me in that plane. I get in the plane, and they already were running out of water. And I looked across and I saw a blonde-headed boy with oil all over him in his eyes. I knew it was my buddy Spooner. And they had given Spooner a can of green beans. You ever be so desperate for water that you take a can of green beans? And Spooner found something on the deck of that aircraft. He knocked a hole in that can of green beans. He turns it up and he's drinking some of that. I can see Spooner. He's in my squad. I swam with him tied onto me for nearly 2 days. My buddy Spooner. And I asked for some of his bean juice, and he couldn't see me. I said, Spooner, this is Harrell. And when I said that, he kind of fell toward me with his bean juice, and anyway, I shared some of the bean juice. Okay, now then, the Doyle comes on a little later that night and begins to pick us up off of the aircraft, and I'm taking aboard the oil, and now I'm covered with oil. I mean covered with oil. And anything that had rubbed, it's infected with all of that oil and so on. And so anyway, I'm aboard the oil now. And they take me below deck and they give me a diesel or a kerosene bath. And then all of that rotten flesh now comes off. And what can they do? I'm just bleeding. And they wrapped me in Vaseline gauze. And until they could get me to Baloo, to the hospital. And then there, they couldn't do much for me. And they bring me to Guam. I'm in the hospital in Guam. And I have Admiral Spruance over here on a little cot, and he pins the Purple Heart on me. There's another gentleman there who says, "Hey, Corporal, when did you find out what cargo that you were guarding?" I said, "We never knew." He said, "You know, today, August the 6th, Hiroshima, August the 9th, Nagasaki, August 12th, the Japs aboard the Missouri." I made it then back to the States. I got back to the States finally October the 3rd, thinking that I got a 90-day leave, but my 90-day leave was the next day. I would be in Balboa Hospital. I had a perforated appendix. And I'm in there and they tell me we can't operate. Your white blood count is such that we can't operate. But they said, "We've got a new medication." "What is it?" "Penicillin." Okay, I became a pincushion. Every 2 to 4 hours, you know, they gave me a shot in the buttocks. And they gave me a total of 11,800,000 units of penicillin. They didn't think that I would make them, but the good Lord was with me, and I survived that. I'm in there, though, through Christmas. Yes, through Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm in there the 4th of October through the rest of the year. Okay, now then, there's much more of my story, but I want to read something to you, and it has to do with the possibility that Wilbur Glenn would spot us in the water. And Marks and Gwen came to our reunion all through the years. They're all gone. All the survivors are gone now. I think that there may be 10 others besides myself. I'm the last Marine, but
Sergeant Edgar Harrell, USMC, for your participation in the vital and secret mission which helped bring an end to World War II, and your survival of the greatest catastrophe at sea in the history of the U.S. Navy. We salute you. BBA Chapter 1067, September 19, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harrell has copies of his book, Out of the Depths, where he gives first-hand account of the sinking of the Indianapolis. He will be at his table in the lobby immediately after this program. Marine escorts, please post. Mr. Harrell, if you would stand in front of the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the retiring of the colors and remain standing for the benediction.
On. Colors. Hold. Permission to receive the colors.
permission granted.
Aye, sir. Order. On. Order. Arms. Ready. Cut. Face. Right. Shoulder. Arms. Ready. Cut. Counter march. Arch. Colors. Oh. Order. Arms. Ready. Cut. Retreat. Right. Face. Forward. Arms. Loose. Arch.
Chaplain Henderson, would you please come forward and give the benediction?
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Let us take a moment as we depart to thank the Lord for the privilege of being here today. Father, thank you for the privilege to be in the presence of greatness today, to be reminded of those who served, to be reminded of those lost on the Indianapolis, USS Indianapolis. So Lord, help us to remember, help us to keep our nation free. Lord, we pray your blessings on everyone present today, and thank you again for Mr. Harrell, his life, and all those who have gone before. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen. Amen. Please be seated.
Marine escorts, please escort Mr. Harrell to the table in the rear. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. Mr. Harrell will be at the book table in the rear or in the lobby to sign your books. Thank you very much. Have a great day.